So in this section, we're going to be talking about directives and action responses, which actually move us a little further along the continuum of directive listening skills.
Directives are really sort of like prescriptions in that they push or move clients a little bit toward acting, feeling, or thinking in certain particular ways. And so it's really important when using these kinds of approaches that we weave back and forth, or we integrate into the approach some less directive or non-directive listening skills. So a non-directive listening skill, like a paraphrase, and then a directive action response, and then a check-in or paraphrase to follow it.
And you know, we're talking a lot about the continuum as if it's a linear sort of process, but actually it's sort of dimensional, because something that seems very non-directive could be done in a way that was experienced as pretty directive. Raised eyebrow, a tone of voice, choice of words, posture, those kinds of things can be experienced as a pretty directive or non-directive.
I know I've seen some people raise one eyebrow, and I've never been able to do that.
No. Can you raise one nose nostril?
I don't even want to try, especially not on video.
Okay, fine. So in general, I think the truth is that non-directive things can be directive, and directive things can come off as non-directive, really depending on how you use them.
Yeah. When interviewers start sharing information, or making suggestions, or expressing agreement or disagreement, or approval or disapproval,
or giving advice,
self-disclosing.
Yeah, self-disclosing, urging.
When those kinds of things are happening, it's obvious that the interviewer is moving toward action. And we're trying to change in those situations the client's way of thinking or way of being or behaving. We are in the realm of the directive. Which may be one reason why directives are most effective with clients who are in Prochaska and Di Clemente's action stage in the trans-theoretical model. These are people who are ready to engage and work hard toward change.
Right. Well, being directive is not a bad thing. It's just that it comes very natural to some bossy firstborn people, and they might need, like you've been talking about, to tone it down, to be aware of when to use it. And on the other hand, there are people who are very passive, and the idea of offering something directive can be sort of terrifying. So in this next clip, we see John using agreement, suggestion, and he provides psychoeducational material effectively and appropriately. Watch how he engages his client Lisa with the information and the ideas he offers.
Well, I don't want to take drugs. I've tried a couple of glasses of wine at night. Doesn't seem to help.
That doesn't help either.
No. I've tried a good book, and that's fine until I turn off the light, and then my mind starts racing again. I just feel overwhelmed and behind, and I've been all my life there have been times like that.
Yeah.
But I've been able to see the big picture and know that it's just a bump in the road. Now I'm swallowed up.
Yeah. That does sound really intense. Now, let's focus on the sleep just for a little while. You know, there are three kinds of insomnia, mainly. One is difficulty falling asleep, and that's when you lay there, oftentimes with racing thoughts, but you can't get to sleep, often for hours. The second type is early morning awakening, and that's when you go to sleep, and you sleep most of the night, but maybe 2 or 3 in the morning, depending on when you went to bed, but way earlier than you want to wake up. You wake up and then you can't get back to sleep. And so that's early morning awakening. The first one is difficulty falling asleep. And the third one is a thing called choppy sleep or intermittent insomnia. And that's when maybe you have some difficulty falling asleep. You go to sleep, you wake up, you go to sleep, you wake up, and you kind of wake up intermittently through the night. Which do you think is the best description of the troubles you're having?
The first one.
Okay. Are you interested if I might suggest to you a few ideas about how to approach the sleep issue?
Sure.
I know that there are other things that we could and will talk about, but it seems like if we focus on the sleep for a little while, that might be useful. Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay.
I think it's all magnified by the fact that I have such a sleep deficit.
Yeah.
And if I can sleep better, I'll handle things better.
Yeah, I think that might be true for everybody. The lack of a good night's sleep can make all of us a little less able to cope with things. And anything else you've tried to maybe push the thoughts aside or to speed the onset of sleep for you?
No.
Okay. Have you ever heard of mindfulness meditation, or have you ever tried meditating at all?
No, I never have.
No? Okay. I'm just going to describe one approach to that, and actually I'll probably describe several approaches. And what I'm going to do is I just want you to think about them and try them on as I'm talking. Okay?
Okay.
And so there's a guy who did some research long ago, and he identified 4 things that people need to experience a relaxed state of mind. They need a comfortable position. I'm guessing in your bed it's comfortable. They need a quiet place. Is it more or less quiet?
More or less.
Okay. Then they need a mental device, and what that means is a thought. It could be an image to focus on. It could be a word. You've tried counting sheep. That's an example of a mental device, and we'll talk more about that in a moment. And then the fourth thing you need is a passive attitude. And a passive attitude, do you know what I mean by that?
Well, go back to the one before.
Mental device.
Yes. At some point, I hope you'll explain that one to me.
Yeah.
And no, I'm not sure exactly what you mean by a passive attitude.
Okay. Well, let me try to explain both. Mental device, the sort of Zen people who are into meditation would say that your mind is like a barking dog. Bark, 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 bark. And that it barks when you stop reading and you lay down, and they sometimes say yapping, but a barking or a yapping dog. And that in order to get that mind to stop barking at you, you need to give it a bone. You need to give it something to chew on. And that is what we refer to as a mental device. Mental device being sometimes a mantra. People who do sort of Buddhist stuff might say the word Om over and over. People who are religious, I know a guy who is religious and he likes to say something that feels sort of spiritually right to him, and his mantra is to say, I am here, here I am. So with his in-breath he says, I am here. With his out-breath he says, here I am. And that's sort of got some spiritual meaning for him, and so that he finds that very soothing and he can stick with it.
So Lisa is obviously happy to get some information and help with her insomnia. She's eager to try those ideas.
Yeah, I have to say it's exciting, maybe a little ego boosting to have a client who's really ready for action. Mm-hmm. And so I can provide her with a little scientifically based psychoeducation. She responds in a very positive way and is ready to get to work.
Yeah, it's so nice, in fact, that it can be a little bit seductive, and the interviewer who's providing all that information and guidance can get a little too full of himself, and things can take a nasty turn.
Some people have moved into your son and your son's family have moved into your home?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I do love them, and I love my grandbaby.
Yeah.
But I've had many years of living alone, thinking I paid my dues, I raised my children, I love having them come back for visits. But this is, there's always somebody underfoot, and except for midnight and on, it's hard to find a quiet in the house.
Yeah, yeah. What great family time, though. I mean, it's hardly, I mean, it's one of those things, you know, in life, if you get lemons, that sometimes you make lemonade, and it sounds to me like you're probably getting lots of great time with your family that you maybe wouldn't have gotten before.
Well, I thought that 6 months ago when they had to move in because of the unemployment situation. And they asked, and I said they could. I have room. I'd do anything to help them. But it's been 6 months, and I don't even like lemonade anymore.
But just think of the 6 months. I mean, you wouldn't have had that wonderful family time if all this hadn't happened.
Well, now I've worked real hard at adjusting my attitude to accept what has happened in my life. I'm here to talk to you. I'm looking for help because I haven't been doing so well over the last few months. How would you feel? How would you feel if suddenly you had 3 people who are noisy and move into your house and your space and impact your work?
I'm really glad you asked. I mean, I've actually been kind of lonely lately, and so it would actually feel nice to me to have a house full of children and people there. And so I guess what I'm trying to say to you is it's really a matter of attitude, and I wonder if maybe you could consider shifting your attitude toward one that welcomes the company as opposed to fighting against it. You're kind of fighting against it, huh?
I don't think you're I don't think you're remembering exactly what I told you last week. It was all rosy the first 3 weeks. I didn't imagine it would go on this long, and I still don't know how long it's going to go on, and it's wearing. I can't keep up my responsibilities with my job without sleeping, with all this. I've talked to them. They're very nice people, but the house isn't that big.
Well, it sounds to me like you would just like to get rid of them. Maybe just get them completely out of the house.
Well,
as soon as possible.
Phew, thank goodness that's over with. That sort of deteriorated into a disagreement on how Lisa should view her own life. That was kind of like bad TV therapy.
Now, as much as I would like to be a bad TV therapist, I want to emphasize I did that on purpose.
Okay.
Although I like the term you used before the clip of it's seductive. It really is. When clients act so interested in what you have to offer, it's seductive in that you start to think that they really want to know everything about you.
Yeah.
And then you can go overboard with self-disclosure. And you can go overboard with, I think I know what's right for you. And, you know, in the clip where it ended, I could have even gone on and been even more authoritarian or authoritative.
I'm not sure you would have won, though.
No, she was clearly showing a little pushback. But I guess the main point is that even though we might have a really good point to make, or we might have a really interesting life story to tell, that's really not the focus.
It's kind of like not the point.
That's not the point we should be making.
Right. So directive and action responses need to be developed collaboratively, and the client is always the final authority.